Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, and all the other podcast platforms. And if you're on Apple Podcast, please drop us a comment. We really appreciate that. My name is Shiro, and today we'll be covering Threads, an Instagram app, and social media strategy also for move-in day and orientation, which will be coming up shortly for everyone listening in today. So I'm really excited to cover a topical topic. And for that, I'm excited to have Mike Gombita joining us on today's episode. He's actually returning, so it's his second time recording with us. Mike is also newly serving as the social media strategy manager at East Stroudsburg University of Pennsylvania. We can say ESU from short for now, but welcome to the podcast, or welcome back to the podcast, Mike.
Thank you so much. It is it was quite a surprise being asked to be back on again. And before our recording, I was like, have you had anybody on the show before? And Shiro pointed out that Kyle Campbell was a returning guest. So a lot of big shoes to fill, but I think I'm okay with it.
I'm sure he'll be really stoked to hear that as well. Well, I love to ask this for starting out every conversation here. Mike, what do you love about higher ed?
Oh man, I think the last time I was on the show, I talked about the people, because I think that's what makes it that's what makes a university or an institution great. But I think more specifically, I want to talk about our students. I think our students are the lifeblood of our institutions and universities, because obviously without them, I wouldn't have a job. And I think with their potential in becoming the next future leaders of tomorrow, I really think that students and any of alike, and even, transfer students, residential students, part-time students, we're really looking at a different scope here compared to before the pandemic. And I think the adversity and let's just say the grit, I love using that word, the grit of having our students participate in a higher education degree is something that is almost a wonder story almost. But the students, I really love the students that I get to interact with.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it's invaluable. All the connections and network I have today are all from university as well. And so I completely understand that from a receiving end of education.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, let's jump in. I know you just came into this new role. It's also a new position, a new investment from ESU as well. Can you tell us a little bit more?
So before we started recording, I said I had a little funny thing to share with you. Our first episode that we recorded was back in November 15th of 2022. Do you remember what you were doing that day?
No idea.
So I had this podcast interview, and I love talking about my job about video and storytelling. Later that afternoon was actually the interview for this position that I'm in now.
You're kidding.
No, I'm dead serious.
Oh my goodness.
So this was a really nice conversation starter as far as the interview went on, but it was a really good just warm up to start talking amongst other individuals. But luckily I got the job. I started back in February. And with that, part of it, as it is it's presumed with the assumed responsibilities, many would guess, I manage our official university accounts. So the East Stroudsburg University accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and as we will sure be talking about later, Threads. Obviously reporting on the performance of the content, creating the content, and engaging with individuals that are interacting with social media. As Shiro mentioned, this is the first time that ESU has created a position like this. And many times the social media was managed either through a collective effort through the marketing and communications staff, but then it was also sometimes just added as an additional responsibility to somebody else at that time. But I think really bringing it down to the nitty gritty, there is an importance of the word strategy in my title. So the social media strategy manager. And with many of that, strategy is necessary to execute a consistent and strong delivery on social media. People can't expect that they can just post online one day and then hopefully that they can get a big attendance for their event. There's a strategy behind that. And with that strategy comes with time. We can't just come up with a strategy the night before or the day of. It takes a little bit of time for the strategy to execute. With social media itself, just talking about that strategy itself, I think, Shiro, what we always run into as social media managers, and I'm sure many of us have in previous guests and previous episodes before, is we do get a lot of feedback when it comes to social media because we're all consumers of the social. And it's a human nature. It's not anything where that just comes out of nowhere. Like, people are on social media every day for a consumer side. And eventually that leads to criticism and critiques because they are on social. I do have a fun quote that I do follow a man named John Steven Stansel. He great person in the social media world itself. And with that, I love this quote, and I'd love to share it on the podcast today. But knowing how to drive a car does not make you a mechanic. Having a Facebook account does not make you a social media manager.
Yes, thank you.
So, with this position, it's really creating a bunch of initiatives and a lot of directives from scratch. We're just finishing up on a social media procedures that hasn't been updated since its creation. So really diving deep into that as far as how can we help our institution have a strong presence on social. So we're just finishing that up as we speak. But really, as a team, we're working with content and strategies, proactively rather than reactively. Reactively, is that even a word? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. That's what I hear a lot. So
okay,
should be
gotcha.
Right.
But with that content itself, creating a strategy behind that, making sure that we're not thinking about an inauguration content schedule the day before. We are thinking about this maybe weeks in advance, or hopefully a month in advance.
Right.
And then also too, we're working on drafts for an ambassador program. So having our students represent ESU, but also creating almost an invite or a community to work with, to help identify trends that personally for me, I'm not aware about. I try to stay on top of trends that are on social, but our students see those trends more, and is a great pathway for our students to bring it to our attention and be able to execute it in a way that fits the brand, fits the voice, fits the tone, and so on with those check boxes.
Oh man, yeah, I completely agree. I think the episode I just posted yesterday, or previous episode with Carrie Phillips, part of the episode was talking about managing a team and she has a team of social ambassadors as well, and having their input is so critical to their strategy as well, because like she said, she's out of date, she's out of touch with what the actual students of today are consuming. And so she keeps an open line of communication for ideas, strategy, tactical types of content sharing and ideation. And it's a super relevant topic, I think.
Yeah.
It's also funny you mentioned the career switch as well. I had one of my first couple guests, his name was Garrett Spradlin.
Okay.
I might be pronouncing his last name wrong, but he'd actually exited higher ed for like 2 or 3 years. And the podcast, amongst his own internal feelings, like helped him like apply to another job in higher ed.
Oh, okay.
So he's back in higher ed now, working at Arapahoe Community College, but similar story. Yeah. He got back into higher ed by the time we recorded, which was interesting.
This podcast is changing lives. You know that, right?
Oh man. Oh, it's just funny to hear that. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And I think recently I've been covering social media a lot more. And I think Nikki Sundstrom also said it very well. She said, everyone thinks they're an expert because they're a consumer of social media, but that's not always the case, right?
Yeah, if anybody listened to that episode, I mean, Nikki is a pool of knowledge. I mean, an ocean of knowledge. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So, we've actually had conversations beyond conferences and all that, just to hear her out. And a lot of the stuff that we're working with today was because of her support. So that was a really good episode that you had with her.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, and if she was pretty open to the fact that, hey, like if you work in social, I don't care if you just started or if you're a manager like yourself, Mike, reach out to her. She has
Yeah.
an open line of communication and she'll always reply back. That was one of the things she was proud of. So
Yeah.
to anyone listening and you're managing social or curious about social, send Nikki a message or to Mike because
Yeah.
Mike will respond as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, talking about, staying on top of things and trends, right? Let's talk about Threads and Instagram app, or by Meta as well. Threads versus Twitter. How are you looking at implementing Threads into your social media strategy, or what are the conversations going on? I know it just launched literally last week, so it's extremely top of mind for a lot of social managers and social strategists in higher ed. But yeah, tell us more about how you're approaching this.
Yeah, so this platform itself, Threads, I think it wasn't like another, and this is obviously what was going through my thought process before even, the hope of creating an account. But you saw this account, this Threads app, show up quite a bit before its launch date. And it's in due part to that it's ran through Meta. But you saw news lines. I think I saw one of the news lines that had said it was Meta's Twitter killer, which very aggressive in the headline. But within that, I mean, everybody knows who has a Threads account. It's very similar to Twitter. You have the opportunity to create conversations of what they're calling it threads. They can repost or quote or a thread, or even like or comment on the thread. And talking about it as a consumer standpoint, I don't mind it. But I haven't been able to be the consumer of the app because we're on it as the ESU Threads account. And what's been a pain about it is we are so in the infancy stages of Threads that, unfortunately, social media managers like myself don't necessarily have a true, thorough, concrete strategy that allows us to actually say, this is our plan, which has been challenging because of the media attention, because of people signing up for it. We're always going to get those questions of, are you signing up for this platform? Are you signing up for this account? With that, I think as a social media manager, there's been a few pain points that I think a lot of my other higher ed social fellows or colleagues have pointed out, whether they've tweeted about it. There's been a lot of articles about it, obviously. There's been a huge talk about no accessibility within the platform itself. So there's been no alt text options. There's been no SRT files that you can upload for your videos. So what you would have to do is, if you want to be accessible, you have to include the alt text in the thread of the post. Or in addition to that, if you're creating video, you have to burn in the closed captioning in order for closed captioning to be available to people with a disability involving watching video. There's also no analytics too. I think that's obviously, if you're running social and you're running analytics, you don't really see the back end as far as like reach or impressions. All you just get is how many likes the thread gets itself. And then on top of that too, there's really not a whole lot of discoverability right now. If you're on the homepage, you're seeing threads chronologically, and you're also seeing thread accounts that you don't necessarily follow. So there's really no refinement in that opportunity to say, hey, I'm interested in, let's just say, basketball. I know I see the NBA Threads account a lot, but that's just my interest, but because I follow it. But if somebody wanted to look for basketball, they wouldn't necessarily have a discoverability option like we do on a lot of other platforms. Facebook really throws a bunch of suggested posts at you on your home feed. You might not necessarily like the page or follow the page, but because of the algorithm, Facebook is like, you know what? You might like this page here, and here it is. And in most cases for me, it's mostly Star Wars on the times when, The Mandalorian is out or the Book of Boba Fett. Like, it's always those types of content. But then also being a social media manager, there's a lot of content that comes through there. So a lot of higher ed institutions show up in my suggested pages, and I'm like, okay, we'll take a look at it. But within that itself, I think in its infancy stages of Threads, the idea that a social media manager has a plan behind it. And I think we're almost coming up. Yeah, like you said, like the 1 week and 1 day anniversary of Threads. What was funny, and I'm able to share this experience, we all projected that it would go out that Thursday. So I think it was Thursday the 6th, I think it was. If I can, thank you, Shiro.
Yep, it was the 6th, yep. But I remember because it was the day after the 4th, I think.
Yeah,
that's what I remember.
So it was that Tuesday and then Wednesday and then Thursday. Our days got so mixed up with that extra day in between. So it was originally going to go out that Thursday. But for some reason, Meta decided that they were going to launch it the night before. So they launched it around like 7, 8, 9 o'clock, really late into the afternoon. And a lot of buzz happened within the higher ed social community. And, the question was, well, what's the strategy? And everybody's like, we literally just created an account. We don't even know what the platform is. So I created the account that Wednesday night. I created both my personal one and our ESU one. Not to brag or flex here, but we're under the million account mark on both. Thank you for the golf clap. The next morning, I had a team meeting at 9 a.m. When I started the meeting, and it wasn't necessarily me leading the meeting, it was just me being a part of it. Our photographer was like, so I see that ESU is on Threads. Not even having the opportunity. Shiro, I literally had a draft ready to go in my email inbox to send to my supervisor about what is happening on Thursday. And of course, like typical social media, doesn't go your way as always.
Right.
So, this big long conversation of like, well, what is Threads? How do you get on Threads? And I think so many of the social media managers around the country are being pressed as far as, well, what are we going to do on this account? And I think if anybody is under those circumstances, you are able to say, we need to test a few things before we get started. I mean, you can point out a lot of the challenges that we are facing with its infancy stages of the platform.
Right.
Which, by the way, I should say accessibility should always be part of a social platform in its building stages. It should not be an afterthought. Just a little side note there.
I was going to say, like, just the accessibility portion should be enough to, hit the brakes at least for a little bit. But yeah, continue on.
Right. Yeah. So even with that, with Threads, you want to test how many times can you post in a day? What time should you post? Is it best to post 1 photo, 2 photo, 3 photo, 4? Is it best to post vertical video content? Is it best to post horizontal video content? The information that you deliver helps you make a better decision in that strategy. So as far as anybody who is thinking or considering creating an account, as the quote expert, when you bring a guest on the show, you're considered the expert of the show, of the podcast, but I think it's going to take a little bit more time. However, what I will say about Threads is that compared to platforms like TikTok or Mastodon is another one as well, with those two platforms, you're required to create an account and you're required to build that audience. With Threads, Shiro, you shared with me, what was it, today, that you just created an account, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I did it before this call. I'm not gonna lie, just so I can at least fiddle with it and get a feel for it, right? And I researched some numbers and try to figure out how many users it has and demographic. But
gotcha.
Continue on. Yep, I'm still very, very new. I'm about an hour and a half in to my Threads journey.
So when you went through that process, what option did it allow you for followers?
I could immediately follow all of my Instagram. Same accounts that I follow on Instagram. And when I actually created my account, I already had 49 followers from my followers on Instagram following me already. So I know what you're going to say here. So yeah, tell the story here.
So this is obviously the first time a social media platform had this cross following on a platform. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time I'm seeing it. So really having that audience base, you've already have a built audience. So if you really need to just get by with something, what I would recommend or what I would suggest is just keep posting every day like you do, or at whatever your schedule is. It's not necessarily every day, but if you have a post that's going out on your Facebook or Instagram, take that same content and put it over on Threads. You obviously have to adjust it a little bit when it comes to I wouldn't say the content, but the accessibility of it. You might have to put alt text in the post, but Meta is giving you that opportunity to actually have an established audience. For us itself, I think we're up to 10.6 thousand followers on Instagram. We're up to about 700 on Threads. And that it's quick. Like, it is a quick way to get your followers because of this connectivity between Instagram and Threads. But what's been really interesting to see is a lot of higher ed institutions are being a little bit more human. Instead of, everybody likes to say you can't talk to a building. But a lot of institutions are really bringing out their human voice, and they're really interacting, which I think what Threads is attempting to do, and this is just, a prediction and an assumption, is they're really trying to build community within Threads. And as I say that, community is probably the most important thing when it comes to social. And by that, you're creating this atmosphere, you're creating this community that you're allowed to interact with. So with that community, you have that opportunity for ease of access when it comes to following your followers or vice versa. But then you're also able to interact with them very easily because of the simplicity of the platform. But yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen a account say, would you like to pull the followers from another account? Which I think is a little enticing for a lot of people who are interested in creating their account.
Definitely, yeah. That was when I was signing up, that was like the one thing that really stood out to me, especially thinking from a lens. So this is my presumption, is a lot of Twitter users were age demographically, right? They were probably in my generation mostly. A lot more millennials, right? People in their 30s and above. And I don't think their user base for Twitter, I was trying to do a little research, but I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the Twitter users aren't like the Gen Z, right? They're not the 16 to 25, which is a lot of the demographic higher ed is going after. And so if you already have an Instagram account with a large Instagram account for your institution, and you're hitting your target market, it's a great opportunity, I think, to bring some of those targeted users into a more conversational, more community-based, more feels like one-on-one conversation, like Threads is. And I thought that was a cool opportunity, like, immediately for institutions to get on it.
I will say that for Threads, because there's been a lot of confusion. and Shiro, I hope you know this. So if you create your account and you are saying, you know what, I'm really not into Threads anymore, you can deactivate your account and nothing happens. But if you want to delete your account, and I'm saying this because I even said it on my Threads itself, and I guess a native plug. If you want to delete your Threads account, you also have to delete your Instagram account. Wait a minute, what?
Oh, man. I didn't know that.
So be careful. You could deactivate it, but you can't delete it.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, if you're in higher ed and you haven't created your account, like, know these 3 things before you create your account in Threads. You can only deactivate it. If you were to delete it, you have to delete your Instagram account. That's a huge red flag. Number 2, it's not accessible at all. You have to create your custom alt text and text. And 3, I think, what was the third point that you mentioned?
I talked a lot. You know how I am.
Oh, the login aspect. So if you're managing multiple accounts, like on Instagram, if you're managing multiple accounts, you can switch really easily across accounts. That option is not available for Threads yet. And so if you're a manager, it can be very difficult, especially if you're managing multiple schools, multiple units within your organization as well.
And I'm hoping that those updates, as we're recording, this is a timestamp into where we're at with Threads today. So I'm hoping that there is improvements that go through. But But in this essence of the time right now, I think we need to support our social media managers in understanding that this is a new platform. This is not only a new platform, but an additional platform on top of the other platforms that they are running. So I think just really focusing on how can I help my social media manager in understanding, or how can I help them test, or how can I help them give them the flexibility as a new account is being created. I mean, I don't want to like throw guesses, or I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be on a soapbox, but I do think that Threads, and people can come back to this episode and being like, Mike, you're wrong. I think that Threads will last a decent amount of time just because of some of the features that they are inputting in with their followers and with their presence. But again, I'm not putting a time on it, but I think it will grow a little bit more and improve a little bit more. But as we all know, social can just, you know, be deleted by tomorrow for all we know. So
yeah. Oh, that's funny. I did some community research within Higher Ed Social, the Facebook group.
Yes. Oh goodness, how was that?
If you're not, if you're working in social and you're not a part of this Facebook group, go join right now, because it's the most active community around Higher Ed Social. But yeah, someone was like, "Hey, what's everyone's thoughts on Threads? Is anybody still using Clubhouse?"
Yeah.
In parentheses, which had $1 billion valuation when it began. And that just, I have Clubhouse too, but I don't think I've heard the word Clubhouse in a year. So
right. No, you're 100% right.
Yeah, maybe, you know, if you are getting asked by your boss and your executives about what's our plan for Threads, maybe the plan is just, hey, I have a strategy and a plan to test Threads for XYZ, and then I'll come back to you in 3 months to see if we have an actual strategy aligns with our institutional strategy and goals as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the plan, is to have a plan to test. I like how you put it.
Yep. Have a plan to plan.
That's great. Well, speaking of planning, right? It's almost August, and by the time this is posted next week, people will be in the thick of it, which is talking about move-in day communication, orientation for students, right? And really committing on that first week and month of student success. Really topical right now. How are you using social media as, you know, a tool or a unit? I don't know the right word for this, as a group to help support this extremely important time in a student's life cycle?
Yeah, I think with social media as a whole, I think we are very quick, and this just goes across just, you know, within the scope of higher ed and the scope of the nation, is that we think that social media is the most impactful because that's where all of our students are. And that's not the case. Like, it is part of, I always say it's part of the cog wheel that is spinning amongst the rest of the cogs in that big wheel that is allowing you to communicate to your students. So I think with one of the things with orientation is there's kind of like multiple directions that you need to go. Obviously, with the first direction, you know, you want to welcome the incoming students. So you got to find a ways to interact with them and make them feel like they are part of the campus community. The second thing you need to do is you need to inform everybody about, and which kind of coincides with the first point, but being able to inform them as far as what is going on when it comes to moving in or when it comes to your new student orientation. And at times, which has been a little crazy, considering this is my first go around, you know, everybody says it's not my first rodeo. Well, it is my first rodeo. So hopefully I can last a little bit longer than 8 seconds. But with that, you're getting a lot of inquiries. You're getting a lot of questions. And obviously with the scope of communication, there is obviously a phone number that parents and students can call if they have questions. There's also an email that in case that, you know, they have a question, they can write to you. But I think the most easy thing that students and parents alike want is they'll just message the Facebook page because it's, you know, it's the official institution of the account. And so that puts a social media manager, a person like myself, in the position of, okay, they have a question. how do I find the answer? And for somebody being here for only about 5 months at the time of this recording, it's a little challenging because you don't know all the answers. And certainly you are still trying to figure out some of them, even based on your official job title. So as far as gathering content-wise, I'll just share some of the examples that we've been doing. So our multimedia content coordinator, Alexis, has been doing some Q&As with the orientation leaders. So it was focused more on getting involved and then housing and dining, which usually in most cases are frequently asked questions during a incoming student's experience coming in. We've also had our student photographer, Taj, being able to be at those new student orientation days. So over the summer, we host, we're just finishing up, thank goodness, on 8 days of new student orientation, not consecutively, just throughout the summer, for the student to come in, get acclimated with the campus, meet with some of the campus partnerships, and then walk away with their campus ID and other questions answered. So we've been doing a lot of Instagram story content. We did this really fun this or that game, which students and incoming students were able to vote on choices between this or that. So the best example, and I love this example, is it was either between, we have this wonderful statue of, her name's Julia. And Julia is dedicated to all the people who served World War II, I think. So dedicated to that and the teachers and the alumni. So Julia sits very beautifully in the center of our college circle. And then there was a cow in Kemp, the cow in the Kemp library. And this was actually recommended to me by a student. So I go up to my boss and I'm like, so what is the cow in the Kemp library? And she looks at me like I had 6 heads. And I'm like, I was given to this by a student. So as I was asking around, I found out that there was actually a statue of a cow in the basement of the library.
Oh, wow.
So that was pitted up against that. And with the Instagram stories, there's a poll that people can vote on. I really was hoping Julia would win, but it looks like the cow at Kemp won. A little disappointing, but to each their own. But then obviously capturing content, last orientation we did, we interviewed, but we recorded some of the deans and some of the individuals that are responsible for the academics at ESU. So they got to share who they are, put a name to a face, and then we're also able to kind of share some words of encouragement or advice, especially at a dean or executive, a director's level, like bringing them down to a point where they can be in a humanistic standpoint to share advice, I thought was really resonating with some of our students. And then just making sure we're gathering them together and making sure with those photos that we're posting them online, that we're able to kind of share them amongst the students, because then the students can share them on their personal accounts. And it kind of helps out with kind of sharing to a wider audience. And of course, with that wider audience, those incoming students, they just graduated high school. So there's an opportunity that they may be following or have followers that are high school juniors or high school sophomores. And I think that reels them in a little bit more. I mean, it's a very light lift in the sense of like we're reaching out to a wider audience. But we're hoping that transaction-wise, we're able to get students following the page and then they'll continue as they go on their college search. But I think importantly, amongst all the things, I think I mentioned it in the beginning of that question, was having an idea with orientation. So I've built an amazing relationship with a working relationship with the person who's responsible for orientation. Her name's Clarissa. With that, anytime I get a random message, one message was talking about a 2-factor authentication for an email. For me, obviously, I don't know. So I go to her directly and is like, this student has a question. How can we help them? And she's very quick and easy to respond. She's very accessible with that. But then it gets down to those things with like move-in and how hectic a day is, especially when you are a state school and not have like 400 students, but 2,000 students that come in. It's a hectic day. And at times, and as we know, when as a human, when we're upset about a product or service, we tend to reach out to the social media channel, the poor social media manager. So getting in touch and building those partnerships. So with that community itself as a partnership, you're able to answer a lot of questions that you don't necessarily need to keep reaching out to the orientation person, because they've informed you a lot on those decisions, on those times in which students can move into a certain resident hall. Where can they park? What do they need to do after? Because those little things will help that student in that college experience, because we all know about the experience always leaving a good first impression, and orientation is always one of those first impressions for a college student.
Love that. I'm hearing a lot of things. So, if you really are creating a social media strategy for move-in day and orientation, what you're really doing is, one, there's a customer service model, right? You're
Yes.
helping out the end consumer as well as the buyer, which is a parent or another constituent. You're helping them in a customer service model. Number two, you're also creating deeper ties with other organizations, other departments and schools within your org, which isn't just beneficial for this period, but also, throughout the school year and for years to come. You're also building increased engagement and awareness with new engagement users, right? So if I'm a student and I repost my story, my siblings and my friends who are still in high school might see them. So you're increasing awareness and engagement. There's so much that goes into this, right? And so that's kind of what I'm hearing is listening to this whole story is you're really, by collaborating on something that's, focused like this, there's so many benefits in many different areas. And yeah, it's funny that you point out that when people have a question now, like they don't resort to the phone or to asking someone in person, it goes straight to the DMs.
Yeah. Apparently, I'm an expert in every single little thing that happens at the institution. So,
right,
especially
no,
being
understand.
at 5 months into the job,
Right.
I just know
And
everything. So,
I like that you said that, being informed with, just I think we said prior to this call, like just being really aware of what's happening at each time of the day during orientation as a social media account manager is going to be really helpful, because you'll probably get those basic questions around like, hey, like, where do I go for this? Which is
right.
the thing that everyone does. You can easily answer that. You don't have to reach out to your orientation director or VP for something like that. And, that also takes a load off of them, and you're helping each other and just cross collaborating even more.
Yeah. And then there's also, the automations. I mean, Facebook Messenger certainly has a lot of automations or frequently asked questions. If you don't necessarily want to field those questions, let's just say about parking, you can have orientation parking, and then you can have that automatic response. Before me coming on, I don't think we had automatic responses besides the, hey, thanks for your message. So I think establishing those as well could be helpful in the process if you don't want to be fielding every time, like, hey, where can I park? So just a suggestion for everybody who's out there in the trenches of social. So.
Just curious, out of those 8 days, right, of orientation that you've successfully completed, like how many messages do you think you got across all your social accounts, or an increase?
I mean, there definitely was a significant increase, specifically directed towards orientation. I think I remember, which has been odd, I think I've only remember helping out at least 10 people. And I think that's just Facebook alone. I'm sure there's a few on Instagram. I'm expecting actual move-in day, like moving in, dropping the student off, the hugs, the goodbyes, the tears, like emotions run high that day, of course. But I think we'll see an uptick in our messaging around or close to our move-in day.
That's great. And yeah, so like if you don't have time to build out a huge strategy, just communicating some of those. We have like a pyramid we built with the onboarding success pyramid, and at the very bottom layer, there's 4 levels. The very bottom layer is basic needs and logistics. So even just communicating the housing, dining, parking, where to park to get to your dorm to move in, that sort of information is helpful. And on the flip side, I think just being, being on your account during those times so you can help answer questions to parents and to students and to any constituents helping with moving day. Just doing that, you're helping out, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
And social media is not, we're starting to realize it's not becoming a 24/7 job, specifically in higher ed. So if somebody messages you at 2 a.m., I hope you don't respond back at 2 a.m.
Right.
Next business day or next day that you're available, yes, I'd love for you to respond. But I think just being mindful, always having that healthy work-life balance, especially in social, which is somewhat challenging. We always expect that immediate response. So it's okay if they message you at 2 a.m. that you can message them the next day. Well, not even the next day, the morning of when they messaged you at 2 a.m. Like, don't spread yourself too thin for that, because somebody with that question, like, can probably wait till the morning, unless it's code red, which very rarely happens for basic needs of questions. So
maybe there's ways to set up those automated messages based on time. I don't know. And
you could turn,
you can do.
You could turn it on. There's certain ways, like, you could turn it on, like, but I think those are only associated with an away message. So like if it's the weekend, you can put that, our offices are closed, like we'll respond back to your message on Monday. But I don't have that turned on for ESU, but I do have a lot of the basics, like I want to visit campus, I want to apply.
Got it.
There may be an additional one because of orientation, like information about orientation movement or whatever the characters allow me.
That's great. Well, speaking of automation, I know it's, getting a little longer than our usual episode, but I'd love to jump into this topic is around AI tools. I know I covered it with Kyle Campbell in a previous episode, but we were talking more high level around content creation. But I'm curious to hear how, Mike, you've implemented any AI tools into the social media strategy and content creation specifically for social.
Yeah, so I feel like anything now, any platform, anything we talk about, there's always an artificial intelligence component to it. Before we were hopping on the podcast, I messaged Shiro with an Adobe podcast feature, which is something that I use very often for social content creation. And what it does is, with its artificial intelligence, or AI for short, it gives you can upload your audio file to this website. It's through Adobe, so it's an official site, and it's able to remove the background noise, and it's able to make it sound like you're in a recording studio. So when it comes to, let's just say, Instagram stories, or if I'm recording from my phone, yes, the onboard camera mic is great, but at times using that Adobe podcast AI has been amazing and has improved the results, because I know that I can be in a somewhat medium noise level room and be able to record with my phone and still get a result that I was expecting. Expecting as far as good quality. I always say, don't let AI, I don't want to say manipulate, but don't let AI control your life. And what I mean by that is, don't be too dependent on it. So as I say, you can go into a medium noise level room and record somebody for a simple spotlight or a testimonial. Move them to a place that you can interact with them, you can record with them. Always use that, but it's always nice to have that in a quick pinch. As far as with content creation, I always like to say that I don't necessarily let it take over my job. Everybody says that, artificial intelligence will take over your job. I don't think artificial intelligence will take over your job. It's just going to take over some things part of your job. It's not going to entirely take the human out of it and say, we don't need Mike anymore because we can just ask ChatGPT to write us a few pieces of copy for social. There's still a lot that goes into that process when making a social media post. So for that itself, when it comes to creating content, there's a trend that I do want to do is with a very royalty-free AI art. I think Adobe is still doing it again. Here we go with Adobe. You're able to generate imagery just by a few prompts. And I've tried it, and I put East Stroudsburg University and it's come up with some very close but yet interesting results. So there's usually a trend that comes up, and it's like using AI to, show what East Stroudsburg University looks like to an AI. So that's a trend that I do want to do eventually. But in most cases, for my day-to-day, when it comes to using artificial intelligence, I think one of the things that I use it for is if I'm in a creator's block. So let's just say I'm trying to create a lot of content, and there's this post about, I don't want to keep it generic, but let's just say we have a new program, underwater basket weaving, which is a true class to take. But I don't really know what to talk about. So in ChatGPT, I'll write me a few examples of social media copy that's under 280 characters about announcing a new underwater basket weaving major. With that, it gives me those results, but at very few times I take an entire example. Usually some of the words or verbiage or sentences usually sparks that creativity back. So it's really helped me improve my workflow and my process. But I know it's non-social media related, but I love to mention this. So for this podcast interview today, I decided that I wanted to just talk all my thoughts out and then be able to put them in a way where I can review them and then put them together. So I follow this guy. His name's Thomas Frank. He's a Notion power user. Notion's an app that I use very frequently when it comes to content scheduling or content management. Content management and strategy and note-taking and task management. So what he's come up with, which I was able to copy because he showed us a tutorial, was I'm able to take a voice recording. So I can literally take this episode recording podcast. If I have the actual file of it, I can upload it to a cloud, Google Drive or Dropbox base. Whisper AI, which is part of OpenAI, transcribes the entire video recording or audio recording. It's usually more audio. It records the entire audio recording, and then it brings it to ChatGPT. And then what it does is it gives you a summary, it gives you a transcript, it gives you main points, gives you follow-up questions, and then arguments and areas and improvement. All just by talking.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I used it like last, hand up, I'm guilty as charged. Last night I was using it, and all I was doing was just talking. So I saw the questions and I saw the prompts that we were discussing, and I just talked. And I talked, and anything that came to mind, I brought it out, just put it out there. So instead of me writing pages of notes, I was able to talk, and then I was able to put it together. So I might show you that later after the show, just to show you where my mind was at with everything. So
that's great. Yeah, we use Otter AI to transcribe all these recordings and create an accessible podcast page for all of our episodes now.
Nice.
We also, strongly believe we should lead with accessibility. So that's a huge priority for us in Concept 3D as well. But yeah, we're using AI tools to sort of assist that journey as well. And I like how you broke down, like taking something with a lot of text and breaking it down into smaller chunk size bits that will be good for things like social, right? And so definitely using that same tactic to our own marketing approach as well. Definitely super helpful. I'm looking for an AI tool that hopefully in the future splices these video recordings into smaller bits in a really good manner. There's a company out there called Vidyo, Vidyo, video.ai that allegedly does that. I still need to test it. But that would be a huge uplift too, because if I'm thinking social media, like it'll create like 5 to 10 second clips would be really good for like TikTok or Instagram stories in the future.
Yeah, Opus Clips, OPUS clip. I've seen that too. You just take a YouTube video and you paste it, and then it actually brings out some of the discussion points. Right. I know they had a beta which you were able to do it for free, but there is some cost I think associated with it now. But it was good. I mean, I used it as a reference for when I actually went in, because I run a personal podcast on the side. but going into it, like I see where all the points are, and we've taken some of those topics and we've applied it to, our content that we're posting.
Love that. Love that. It's going to be interesting. I love having this conversation. I told Kyle, let's talk about it again 6 months to see how far we've come. So it should be really good.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Mike, where can our listeners connect with you outside of the podcast?
Yeah. So if you're really curious about what the content I'm doing today in my job as the social media strategy manager at East Stroudsburg, you could certainly follow all of our higher ed institution accounts on Facebook at East Stroudsburg University, or our Twitter at ES University, as well as our Instagram and Threads. We have a YouTube channel as well. But if you want to connect with me personally, I always love LinkedIn. That's how Shiro and I got together for the first time, was through LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, my name's Mike Gombita, Gombita. I always love connecting with people, meeting new people. And, if anybody ever needs any help with social, I'm always available for a chat or a coffee, because you know how much I like coffee in the morning. So
got mine right here. Yep.
I wish this was coffee, but unfortunately fortunately it's water, which is also the second best drink in the world.
I hear you. Well, thanks again for joining us again. Hopefully we have you on again. And to our listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.